Hello, everyone. Welcome to this superb webinar on how to succeed with the reopening of your restaurant. Amazing to see a lot of people here from the restaurant industry, both from current customers, people who are running other restaurants, and we see people here from Japan to Denmark to the UK, Sweden, Norway, and so on. My name is Zaedo. I'm the CEO of Superb, and today I would like to go through some practical steps on how you guys can reopen your restaurant with success. So what has happened the last period has been, I would say, very dramatical for restaurants around the world. And we know how much you're suffering, and we are trying to do our best to support you during this journey. So I will just share my screen with you once here. Hang on. And start the presentation. So again, how do you reopen after such a crisis like the COVID-19 Corona have brought to your restaurant? You have probably a lot of questions towards doing that, and you probably have been talking with industry people, your team, your family about the best strategies for doing this. This webinar will offer you some more practical steps you can take to elevate your restaurant experience and prepare yourself for a new future where you actually need to stand out to be successful. Because we've seen, based on the last financial crisis, that reality is that people will spend less money. They will be very selective, but when they get a good experience, they will also share it with their network. So you need to be better than ever before. Now, I want to urge you all to please share your questions. If you have any questions, you can use the right sidebar. And I will share these slides shortly after the call. So what will we talk about today? This is a step-by-step list you can use to succeed with the reopening of your restaurant. We will go through how you can streamline your business and reduce unnecessary costs. We will discuss why guest data is essential to succeed in this incoming period. We will look at the importance of being in control of your business and your sales numbers. And we will also look at smart ways to ramp up your marketing efforts. Now, ultimately, we want to make sure that your restaurant has an opportunity to increase revenue and at the same time be able to deliver a high quality guest experience and be faithful to your brand. Superb introduction. We're the world's first all-in-one platform that provides you with a convenient workflow with all your guest data in one place. We will also talk a bit about how important that data is, because one of the popular questions that we've received during the last months from restaurants around the world is, how will the new normal guest experience be like? So using the word new normal is very radical and game-changing, and nobody really knows what that means. Of course, it's hard to be predictable on that. But what we know is that the COVID-19 outbreak has fundamentally changed the way people interact with each other. It has changed in more practical terms, the amount of tourists that you will see, and in tourism in general. And we also see a new tendency towards connecting more with the local communities. Ultimately, that means restaurants around the world who have been very, very dependent on the external community, so people traveling, coming from outside, will have to rethink the way they create guest experience. So we like to say a storm is coming, and you need to be more prepared than ever before. So here's a few of our concerns. They might actually match up with your own. Will guests have a fear of dining out? A lot of data shows that we don't have a pandemic to compare with, but we have the last financial crisis to compare with, and Data doesn't show really that people are afraid of dining out, but it does show that people very quickly get used to certain trends. And one of these trends have been takeaway. It has been to non-restaurant business relevant to train outside instead of going to a gym and so on. Now, it will be interesting to see if these trends will continue. But one of the concerns has been, will guests actually have a fear of dining out due to the corona pandemic? But how about the guests that actually dine out? Will they spend less money? The data shows that they will. People will be very conservative to their spend. They will not eat out as much as they used to, and they will value the few experiences very highly. Now, the effect of this COVID-19 crisis financially have put a lot of people out of jobs, but it has also made people a bit hesitant to spend money and instead focus on saving money due to the press and society talking about a new financial recession or new financial crisis. So the question will ultimately be, how do you survive with a less spend and potentially also opening a restaurant with 50% capacity? Because this is just it's not another financial crisis. This is also regarding, it will be relevant for people's health, right? So that means that all over the world, governments are putting regulations on the capacity of how many guests you can actually accept and how many reservations you can accept per evening. And the other question is, when will it end? Nobody knows. You have heard it. You've heard the same news like we have. Will a second wave actually arrive this fall? Will we see another wave when it gets colder? Nobody knows. But one thing is known, and that is it usually takes 1 to 2 years before the market recovers completely. And even that recovery, we still don't know how it will look like. But based again on the last financial crisis, we saw that it took some time before restaurants saw an increase in revenue again. And finally, how do we actually survive without tourism? A lot of the restaurants Superb work with are very, very dependent on travelers, and without them, a lot of those restaurants will be on the brink of bankruptcy. So, that's the hard facts, and what we can see in the data that we pull out from our platform is that 80% of the guests that have made reservations in the last year is actually tourists. So how do we tackle this? From our perspective, you need to look critically on your business. You need to look at your restaurant as a business more than ever before. You need the right tools and be prepared, because that will be the key to handle an unpredictable future. That will be tough, of course, but you need to find a way where you can do this without compromising on your brand and the guest experience that you've spent your life on building. So here's our recommendations based on data from hundreds of restaurants around the world. How do you tackle the reopening of your restaurant? 1, outline a strategy for your reopening. 2, evaluate your restaurant technology. 3, ramp up your marketing efforts. And 4, explore new opportunities to increase revenue. So this will be the agenda that we will go through today. 1, outline a strategy for your reopening. Let's go back one step. Before you open your doors, there's very important practical steps you need to consider. Now, of course, the rules are different from country to country, but we see a certain pattern in the way restaurants are going to reopen. We see that there needs to be proper spacing between tables. In some countries, it's 2 meters. In other countries, it's more. And you have also seen interesting concepts like the greenhouses in the Netherlands, where a restaurant is isolating people outside and in those small mini greenhouses. So this is actually the time for you to be creative. You need to look at your table plan setup and look at how you can rearrange your restaurant so that it fulfills your local regulations and requirements. At the same time, obviously you will not be able to maintain the same capacity because you will have to take out tables. If you're lucky, there's already a minimum 2 meters between your tables, and you can maintain the same capacity. But with decreased capacity, you also need to do proper staff planning. Now, running a business like yours, a restaurant, requires you to actually be very business critical in terms of how much staff you have on duty versus the time and the experience that you're offering your guests. Now, having a lot of staff on duty costs money, and you need to sell a certain amount of menus. You need to have a certain amount of guests in to actually make a profit. So you need to consider how you could potentially make sure that your staff planning matches the capacity, like the guest and table capacity of your restaurant. Could you potentially allocate more tables to one waiter? Think about maybe letting that waiter focus on specific tables throughout the evening instead of letting them switch between tables. So these are ways to rethink your setup in terms of staff planning. Also, you need to consider a cleaning schedule, making sure the restaurant is clean, and that's also high priority for you already. But think about offering the right remedies to make sure people can clean their hands, make sure that the toilet is clean at all time, and so on and so forth. You need to consider if you want to open up your usual opening hours. So with lower capacity, you also need to potentially expand your opening hours to be able to service more guests in order to keep the same revenue level. To also engage with your local community, we've seen that you can actually offer takeaway as a new way to connect the guests to your brand and stay relevant. For that, we have a lot of different examples, like Restaurant Brace here in Copenhagen is a beautiful use case that have made it very clear to the guest that there's the restaurant experience and there's the takeaway experience. It's two different things. But the brands that stays relevant during financial recession or a crisis like this are also usually the ones that will come out on the other side stronger than ever before. For that, you can apply different strategies. So takeaway is one. It doesn't have to be, with a broad takeaway menu. You still need to be loyal to your brand. A lot of restaurants are considering doing lunch packs for a lot of remote business workers that are working at home who have a lunch budget they can spend. Another way is gift cards. Continue to ask your local community to actually buy gift cards from you. The beautiful thing about gift cards is that it gives you revenue right here and now. You get a next day payout, and at the same time you account for it when the guest arrives in the future. And finally, you need to adjust the amount of arrivals per booking time. That means if you previously have been accepting 5 guests at 2 o'clock or 5 guests at 8 o'clock in the evening, you of course need to split out those times and explain the guests in the email confirmations, the SMS confirmations, that they have to arrive at that specific time. So that could potentially be splitting them out in 5-minute intervals, 10-minute intervals, to be able to accommodate the health regulations. Now, this is of course not a normal situation, and therefore it's also very okay to think differently. I know for a fact that every detail in the experience is important. The amount of guests or bookings that arrive at a certain booking time is important in order not to interrupt the rest of the restaurant. But do think strategically when you do your table plan setup and the booking arrivals, in terms of making sure that the ones that arrive first are the ones that are being seated on the tables that are placed deep inside the restaurant, so that you can seat them in a very simple and practical way. Evaluate your restaurant technology. One of the key elements of running a successful restaurant is to manage your costs. Now, one of the other key elements going forward is to actually reduce your costs. We are emphasizing to restaurants that less is more. We've seen that restaurants over the last 15 years have gotten used to using a lot of technology to do a lot of things, but you really need to sit down and think about what is must-have tools and what is nice-to-have tools. The second thing you need to think about is the software that I'm using helping me grow my business? Is it helping me to give a better experience, or is it a bit outdated? Usually we see that restaurants have been using the same systems for many years. They are systems built in the 90s or in the beginning of the 20s, and they are not really following the times that you need. You need to be able to be creative. You need to be able to make events. You need to be able to do chef collaborations. You need to be able to sell gift cards, sell takeaway, and do much more through software. But try to find platforms that actually can do a lot in one place. Now, prioritize platforms that gives you access to take data-driven decisions. Restaurants and restaurateurs have always been data-driven. That's the interesting part. We've always been writing notes about guests in notebooks, Excel sheets. I would assume a lot of you use the Note app on your phone today, and that's great. That has been like the baby steps towards doing this properly. So my best recommendation for you is to really take data seriously. It's not only data about your guests, but also data about your business. You need a platform that actually can help you gather that data and use it in practice. That leads me to emphasizing, again, the thing you've always been collecting inside of your head, guest data. Guest data is the future. This is where you actually need to invest more to continue to personalize the guest experience. Now, a very important question: how do you elevate your restaurant experience in a time where people spend less money? They are becoming very selective about where they eat out, about what they eat, and it will not be. You cannot continue to be very strict on your concept, but you need to think flexibility into it. You need to adapt to the new normal, and that is, how can I continue to be relevant for my guests? How can I continue to bring news value to my guests? Give them a reason so that they come back. The last thing I want to urge you to do is check your contracts through, and renegotiate pricing and terms with your suppliers. Now, obviously, this is very awkward as I am one of your suppliers to many of you, but just like we've been doing with a lot of our customers, I urge you to do that with your current suppliers. they should definitely find a way to provide more value or cut their bills to help you out, especially the outdated versions of them. So that will be a good strategy for you going forward. Think about if the money you're paying for a specific platform is worth it. Could you actually automate that specific process in another way? It's time to take control of your business. Have you heard that before? I won't be arrogant and say that you're not doing this already. What I mean about this is that you can elevate the work that you're doing even more. One important question to ask is, how well is your business doing? Usually I ask restaurateurs, when I talk to people in the restaurant industry, I ask them that as the first question. Unfortunately, 2 out of 3 restaurant owners cannot answer that question. What does that actually mean? Well, talking about how well your business is doing is of course based on many attributes. You can look at how many bookings are you getting during a specific period. You can look at how many guests, how much do my guests actually spend. But you also need to look at the trends in your platform. You need to use software to actually help guide you to the right answer. Now, one of these ways, as you can see in the screenshot here, is to be able to compare different periods in order to identify different trends. How well is April going compared to May? And going back to staff planning, table setup considerations, and so on. Looking at business trends in terms of revenue can actually help you take better decisions. So you could actually potentially predict how busy will your restaurant be in the incoming period. And even more importantly, a lot of this data is actually not reachable for you today, but you need to use your data and make it transparent for your team to actually motivate them to reach new goals. Now, the restaurant experience have primarily been centered around the guests, centered around the small details that you provide your diners with. The new restaurant experience also requires you to focus a lot on your team. You need to give them the right tools that provides them with a daily overview that can nudge them to go that extra mile during service. What I recommend you to do is set up a monthly meeting, a monthly goal meeting. Cook a nice family dinner. Discuss what the specific goals needs to be for this month. Now, that basically means how many reservations do we need this month? What's the total turnover we want this month? How many bottles of wine can we sell this month? You need to be very, very goal-focused in order to allow your team to perform. And I promise you, they will be very loyal to you. They will actually deliver the best performance that you can track on your revenue and bookings that you've ever seen before. And you always have last year to compare with, or potentially asking a restaurant nearby to compare with their numbers from last year if you're a new restaurant. You need to allow them to easily switch screen and be able to track these numbers on a daily basis to be able to be a bit competitive internally. The new experience. We have argued for many years when we launched Guest Experience Management, or GXM, that it's time to change the way you run your restaurant. Now, in order for you to reduce your costs, to increase revenue and improve the guest experience, you really need to reconsider the current software you're using. Now, I don't mind you continue to use a lot of the software you're using if it makes sense to you. That's totally fine. And it's not because you have to choose Superb as the only answer. There's many platforms out there that can help you in one way or another. What my point here is, if you look at the old way of running a restaurant, you see that there's a lot of software out there that are generating a lot of data. Every time you click on a button, Every time you sell something, every time you book someone in, every time you create a new guest profile with an email, a phone number, that is actually data that you can use to connect the dots. But as you see, your systems probably do not talk to each other. They're not integrated, and therefore you have no way to make any context of what's going on. Now, the new way of running a restaurant requires you to figure out how you could find one platform with all the tools to run your restaurant while you collect the right insights you need to give every guest a personalized experience, build relationships to make them come back, and very importantly, increase revenue. You need those features that allows you to do that. You can use guest data to understand who your guest is. You need to understand where are they from, how much do they spend, what do they buy, how often do they visit you or us, how could you nudge them to come back? And ultimately, having these, asking these questions will actually lead you to become much more guest-centric. Now, let me give you a practical example. Who's the smartest person in your restaurant? It's usually the owner or the manager or the chef, right? He has all the guest data you can dream of, kept away. It's saved up in his head or her head, and it's not easy for your team to actually perform at the same level as you. Try to do a test in the incoming time. Try to let your manager stay at home for one Friday, right? Try to compare the Friday and the Saturday with each other, or do it from week to week. You will quickly see that revenue will decrease. So you need to make sure you have access to guest data. You need to make sure your team have access to guest data so they can greet every guest like they've been here before, even though one of the other waiters greeted them last time. And continuing on this, you know the answer already. Data will help you do more personalized experiences, which your guests will expect more of in the future. At the same time, you also need to understand that if you continue to be very guest-centric, you continue to give every guest a personal experience, you will see your restaurant business grow. Now, you can do all the marketing you want. You can talk to all the people you want. But in the end of the day, the best advocates and the best marketing is your guests. It is the guest that's sitting in your restaurant. They're the ones who need to share it with their network to bring in like-minded guests to you. So you need to continue to use data to be able to offer a personalized experience, build relationships, make those guests come back, ask them to share it with their network, or even see that they will do that by themselves. Why is this important? So this is how the data looks like. Restaurants that collect and has access to the right insights do actually deliver personal experiences will be part of the new normal guest experience. 67% of guests will spend more money when they get a personalized experience. So, going back to the first question, what if people stop going out as much as they used to? That's a new situation. We'll have to handle that in a smarter way. One of the ways is to actually continue your focus on being faithful to your brand, personalizing the experience while making sure the other details are intact in your experience. 70% of guests will share the word after personalized experience. It's very much connected to the first data point. 95% of guests will come back after personalized experience. Imagine how high that number is. This is actually your opportunity as a restaurant brand to increase revenue and make sure you continue to do what you love without having to change it drastically. Ramp up your marketing efforts. So there is different ways to actually ramp up your marketing efforts and actually elevate your brand, make it more relevant out there. During this COVID-19 phase, we've seen chefs around the world doing magical stuff with the use of social media. They've made sure that they stay relevant in the customer's mind. They made sure that the customer or the guest are getting closer to them than ever before. So while some chefs have been hiding in the kitchen, they are now out there. And you need to continue to be out there. You need to continue to make your brand emotionally relevant for your guests. That's how they get a connection to you and the brand, and will never leave you for another one. So there's 3 specific practical ways you can start with, at least. So you can educate your guests about your new restaurant experience. You need to inform your guests about the changes in your restaurant post-COVID, how you clean your restaurant, how you handle payments, how you ensure capacity between your tables. Walk your guests through the entire dining experience at your restaurant. This can be done on social media. You can do that already now and actually show them that you are taking this very seriously. You are taking the precautions because you might actually be the restaurant that can make the guests that are most afraid to actually take the chance and go out. Then you need to activate your guest book. Your guest book is your gold mine. So imagine how many guests are you actually building up on a monthly basis. You have thousands of guest emails in your guest book, which you easily have access to. You can download them. It's your data. You can quickly make a newsletter. You can do personalized emails to your most loyal guests. You can set up thank you emails after the guests have visited the restaurant, and so on. You can also let your guests know that you're open again. I would definitely urge you to make sure that information is sent out via social media, but also prepare a newsletter where you actually activate your message to your guests. And here you can even segment it, so you can segment it into the guests that are from your country versus the whole guest book, right? Based on the language they speak. And then you need to make sure that you have a platform that allows you to segment your database. You need to have access to data. You need to be able to download it and work with it. Unfortunately, that's not always possible. You could ask yourself, when did you ever download your data from your POS system, right? Payments data is a bit underappreciated, but it's actually very relevant in these times. Then you need to share your reservation link across your channels. Make a quick rundown of your current marketing channels, right? Make sure all your channels are updated with the right branding. They need to show your brand. They need to all be aligned. You can use Superb's social media on different platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and Google to see how that alignment is intact. Now, I know, of course, that you are you've already built a very beautiful brand identity that we appreciate a lot, because we use that to brand ourselves too. But in practice, make sure that guests are not confused about where they can actually book a table at your restaurant. So on Instagram, make sure you add the link in the bio next to your name. Whenever you do a new post, make sure that it's there so the guest gets an impression, and then you activate them to actually make a booking right away. The same on Facebook, and the same on your Google My Business. It's very, very simple measures you can take that takes less than 15 minutes to do, that can actually potentially increase the amount of reservations you will see in the incoming time. You need to explore new opportunities to increase revenue. Continue and keep selling takeaway. The takeaway concept is most likely going to be part of the new normal for most restaurants, at least for the next considerable time. Nobody knows if the takeaway might become the next big thing. But you could consider being a bit smart about it. Nobody said that you need to sell takeaway on the days where you are open for normal service. It could be on the days where you're closed. Who wouldn't like a very nice meal on a Sunday or on a Monday? You could also consider doing what some restaurants are talking about doing with Superb, is to do these lunch packs, right? You are, of course, prepping for the evening during the day, but could you potentially allow people to come and pick up a very simple lunch during lunch hours? One of the good examples I have is one of my old friends, Sasu from a restaurant Ora in Finland. For the people who know him and his restaurant, he actually turned it into Sasu sushi in this latter period, and I think it's been very successful for him, and I think he will continue to consider that as a new way of increasing revenue. Then you need to promote your gift cards, as I mentioned earlier. Selling gift cards online is an excellent source of revenue. And it's a very, very easy way for your guests to support your restaurant in these challenging times. But I have one question for you. Have you, during the last month, sent out a newsletter where you ask your guests to actually do this? Now, I'll leave that question open, because the next thing is you need to collaborate with your community. It's very, very important to stand together and unite with other fellow restaurateurs or suppliers. This, running a restaurant is all about you, of course, but now it's more important than ever to continue to collaborate with other restaurateurs, do chef collabs or do pop-ups together with your local community. You've been doing this probably on an international level, and we will get back to that, of course, in the future. But for now, you have an amazing opportunity to capitalize on the local diners out there. You need to make sure to think local diners into your strategy. Could you potentially partner with your favorite wine bar, or maybe one of the places that you visit on your day off? They could potentially bring a whole new clientele to you. Then you need to utilize the power of social media. You can do online cooking classes, do-it-yourself food kits, live talks. I've even been reaching out to restaurateurs over the last months doing live talks. I would love to talk to you also. And consider talking to other chefs or industry-related people. Who knows, you could maybe also talk to your guests and ask them live on Instagram what they missed the most of the how the world looked like before. It's all a matter of finding new things to talk about, because ultimately all of these points allow you to stay relevant for your guests. So, chef collaborations, doing exciting events and other creative ideas will bring news value to a restaurant, and make sure your local community share that with their network. It's time to think creative. This is the sadly enough, this is the time that you've been dreaming of to work on the projects that you've been parking on the side because your restaurant was too busy. Pull them out again. Make sure you work on them. Make sure there's software that can actually allow you to do an event, allow you to upsell your cookbook in the reservation flow or your wine and so on. There's many opportunities. And this is my favorite of all: continue cooking. Tell stories like never before. That will probably be my biggest message to restaurateurs out there. I think one of the most crazy things we've experienced in the last 2 months is how important the restaurant industry is for community, right? We knew that before, but I think a lot of people actually realized how much we can learn from you as a restaurant manager or chef. All the amazing cooks that have been showing us how to improve our cooking skills, that have been telling us their personal stories, the people behind it. It's very important that you also understand that people buy brands, they buy stories. They don't just buy an experience. You need to consider what lies behind that experience, and you need to make sure that that story is being told. It can be super intimidating if you haven't been doing this before, but I promise you, you can hide behind the camera. That's one thing, but you will quickly find yourself. You will quickly find a way to be comfortable in that, and continue to be faithful to your own brand and your personality, because ultimately that's what people want to see. So how do we succeed in the new era of hospitality? This is a very, very tough question to answer. Nobody can really predict how the future looks like. We don't know if the market will recover in the next 3-4 months. We don't know if it will happen in the next 2 years. But one thing is for sure. With all the amazing chefs and restaurateurs I've been talking to on our Voice of the Industry live on Instagram the last months, I've really found out what makes you special compared to the rest of the industry. When we founded Superb, we decided to work with this restaurant segment, right? We decided to work with restaurants who are very brand focused, who put the guest experience first, right? We saw that the key here to building a successful business and a successful restaurant experience is to continue to stay faithful to your own brand. You need to make sure that you are faithful to your DNA and make sure that it stands out. I think being faithful to your own brand is something you are doing very well. The second part, making sure that it stands out and are communicated to your local community or people, globally, is something you need to continue to do and take more seriously. The power of social media have really shown that it can actually bring more revenue, right? Restaurants will need to reconsider their costs and what is business critical and what is not. It's very crucial to prioritize technology to increase productivity and control of your business. And finally, guest data will be the key, is the key, and is essential for restaurants to provide each guest with a personalized experience that makes them come back, spend more money, and recommend the experience to their friends and family. And I think you know the answer already to this, right? So how can we potentially help you? What we did was we launched, we've been building a platform the last years that will make your life a bit easier. We want to save you time. We want to automate a lot of the manual processes. We want to help you collect a lot of data that you can actually use in practice. We call this the full circle, right? We call it guest experience management. This is the platform of the future that allows you to centralize your data in one place and use it to increase revenue. Now, due to this pandemic, we also launched a free version of our platform. So if it's relevant for you, we want to offer you a free platform that you can use to empower your business. Just reach out to me directly. Now, I want to just quickly look at some of the questions I have here. Hang on, I just need to stop sharing here. So I think we will start to, let's look at the chat ones. So I think we have some very good points here that you might have been reading. I think Peter Husted, who I personally have been working with in the past, writes the new situation. This new situation with less international guests and a previous audience being global, now it has to be local. Do you have focus on this new audience and how to adapt to this? Very important question, right? Now, in terms of the questions here, can Superb be used as a delivery platform? Now, one of the things we did from the beginning was we tried to pivot into offering you to sell takeaway. Superb is not a takeaway platform. We are not a Deliveroo or any of that sort. But what we are trying to do is we're trying to adapt our platform to actually meet your needs and still maintain the same brand experience without charging you high commissions for it. So we continue to further develop this. I'll show you Brace, restaurant Brace in Copenhagen. If you check them out, you'll see how their takeaway experience looks like. And you will also see that they were highlighted in the New York Times and medias around the world for especially in Italy also, for the way they've been doing it. On top of that, you can also sell gift cards. You can do events. You can sell tickets, and all of this can be managed from one platform. We introduced a point of sale platform that is iPad driven and allows you to look at trends, look at the potential, the revenue trends that you have, look at how much your guests they spend in order to continue to be very much in control of your data. Finally, the only thing I want to say is that, just like after the financial crisis in 2008, we saw that restaurants like you managed to recover pretty fast. But we will also lose a lot during the way. The most important thing for you is to be in control of your business, be in control of your data, and use that to grow. Use that to grow and continue to tell the stories that shows that reflects your brand today. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you got something out of it. I would love personally to connect with each one of you. So reach out to me on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, wherever, and just shoot me a message. I would like to hear how things will progress for you. Thank you so much, guys. It was a pleasure.